Are you totally different when it comes to sex and copulation? Have you judged yourself out of receiving pleasure? Have you judged yourself into receiving pleasure in certain ways and excluded other ways? Would you like to know more about what else is possible with bodies? Would you like to create confidence in the bedroom and beyond? How has your sex life or lack of it affected other areas of your life? Everyone has the potency to be a sexual superhero. Get ready to listen, sense, and play with the sexualness that is you. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, pleasure diva and body whisperer, Milica Jelenic.
Good evening, sweet pleasure seekers. You are listening to a most fantastical and fabulous and spooktacular episode of The Pleasure Zone, where tonight we'll be discussing sex with ghosts and other entities. That's right, you heard it here on The Pleasure Zone, that we'll be discussing sex with ghosts and other entities. I know, it's shocking to me as much as it is to you, but you might be getting turned on right now because a ghost might be doing its thing with you. So sit back and relax if you're not driving and let the ghosts come in and have some fun with you. Maybe we'll have a little guided ghosty time after. We'll just see how that goes. I don't know if you noticed the news a few months ago. There was a thing going around. There was a woman in England who had been interviewed on a bunch of shows about her having sex with ghosts. And I was like, for real? I should have said something years ago. I've been having sex with ghosts since as long as I remember. And I honestly didn't think it was a weird thing. I just thought everybody kind of was like aware of entities, or anybody who could feel or sense entities was probably having sex with entities. Because why not? So, at first I was like, I went into this bit of this place of like, damn it, why didn't I just come out of the closet with that and discuss this? I didn't even know it was like a weird or strange thing. I even discuss it with people in my 21 Days of Sexual Magicism class, not thinking much about it. But, apparently it's all the rage. And there's actually a name for it. I don't know if you know this, but there's a special name for people who have sex ghosts. It's called spectrophilia. And spectrophilia is the sexual attraction to ghosts or the sexual arousal from images in mirrors. Now, I'm not sure how they go together, but apparently the mirror images and the ghosts somehow in our brains, perhaps, we think that it's the same thing. Well, it's a fascinating topic because really ghosts are energy, right? Some ghosts are more like poltergeists and can move things, and ghosts are generally just an energy. A lot of people have the point that ghosts are people who have passed on, or they are your relatives, or so for your point of view about ghosts is cool. We're going to go with ghosts are energy, and entities are energy. Actually, you are an entity as well. So having sex with ghosts and other entities would be also having sex with you. I tricked you. So, I know, who knew? You're an entity, I'm an entity. Your house is an entity, your business is an entity. And disembodied beings are entities, and the dog who got run over by a car that, likes to run by my car even though he's energetic, that guy, he's a ghosty entity. So it's really funny, actually. I have like a slew of dead animal entities on the road where I live, and sometimes at night it's hard to decipher, was that a real deer or was that a ghost deer? And I'm usually pretty good with, if I'm in the car with my husband, he'll just drive through the ghost deers, and I'm, whoa, I thought that was a deer. And when I'm driving, I'm like stopping every 5 seconds because I'm like, whoa, oh, real? Not real. Oh, okay. The animals for me become like super three-dimensional, and I sometimes, especially at night, when that lighting just to a certain way that all the light beings are so obvious you can't miss them. Tend to buddies on the side of the road a lot. So, and when I was a kid, I was very afraid of seeing the ghosts in my room. I saw them a lot as well. As a kid, really, I saw them mostly at night, like when I would wake up from dreams, or they'd be in a room, and I could just, they just drove me crazy. And I had a huge, huge fear of them. So as I got older, and I started to become less afraid of them and more aware of them, I actually started to notice that, ghosts were around all times, even when you're naked. Ghosts are around when you're naked. You think that you're being private, but guess what? They don't give a fart. They're just there and naked. So, if you're horny and you're a ghost, you probably will show up where other horny bodies are. That's the magic. Entities like actually being in the same energy. So, for example, an entity that likes alcohol will find an alcohol to jump into so it can drink, or be around so that it can get the effects, right? So horny ghosts are going to be the same. They're going to be around the people who are horny and picking up the energy. So sometimes they're contributions. So if you have that available too, you could have entities going up in your space who are like, oh, I could just really use a contribution. Now, whatever that is, energy-wise, you might find, and it might be funny, but fun, to also masturbate to clear ghosts and to clear entities. Now, there are a few ways to do this, and sex to clear entities is incredibly effective. And why is that? So, a lot of entities / ghosts who are showing up, we'll just refer to these ones in particular as like disembodied beings, or entities that are kind of hanging out. So if you are, just take this concept into effect. When you're happy and joyful, and that actually creates a lot of space in your being. When there's a lot of space in your being, the entities tend to not be very close to you. And when you're not so joyful and happy and your energy is contracted, the entities and ghosts get closer. So you can bring them in, you can call them in by all means. They're, more than willing to show up. But if you're really trying to clear them, sex is an amazing way to create joy in your body, to expand the energy. If you're actually having expansive sex, that your expansive sex will actually start to clear entities. So in some ways, it can actually be a contribution to clearing entities. One of the other things that I became aware of is that I seem to have a capacity to clear entities out of bodies with sex, whether it's oral or whether it's penetrative sex. You still have the expansive joy orgasmic energy, and that energy tends to be a lot of space, tends to not be as attractive to entities. One of the easiest things I ever learned about entities, I learned from my daughter, who was about 5 or 6 years old, and we were driving down the street of Toronto, and she was telling me that she's like, oh, there's so many entities here. I said, yeah, there really are. She said, can you see them? I'm like, oh, I'm aware of them, but what do you see? And so she was telling me what she saw. And I said, well, is there anything you'd like to do about it? Are they fine? Like, is there anything they require? She's like, yeah. So she started contributing to them, and she started changing them, and I could sense it in my. I started yawning a lot, and I noticed that things were clearing. And I asked her what she was doing. She said, all you have to do is get really big and really white and really happy, and they go away. And I was like, well, that's really simple. And she said, yeah, they change colors. As you become bigger and whiter and happier, they just colors, and there you go. And I was like, that's actually really freaking and really freaking simple. And it's actually that concept that she works with that I get. It's actually what our bodies do when we're having sex. So if you are having sex and you are feeling like entities are coming in your room, just check. Are you feeling joyful, expansive? If you would like to include them for extra fun, and to bring them to your body, or to have like an energetic orgy, then invite them in and be space. You can do both. You can actually be space and invite them in consciously, where if you're doing contraction energy, if you're like contracting a lot, then you're unconsciously inviting them in. So if you'd like to invite them in consciously, if you'd like to invite them in to actually create more for your life, absolutely do that. Now, how do you do that? Because it sounds pretty wacky, right? So let's just say that you're in the middle of ovulation and you're noticing there might be some more energies around. Now you can first Notice it and acknowledge it already means that you're already aware. So acknowledge it. Expand your energy out in the middle of this copulation or oral sex or whatever you're having, this fun play. Expand your energy out, 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 out. Receive more, yourself and your body to receive more from the body you're playing with, and ask their body to receive more from you, and ask the energies in the room to contribute to your body, and then ask your body to be a contribution to that. So if they can contribute to your body can receive contributions ways. They can, be going out to expand your business if you have a business. They could be, assisting with your health, with your family, with joy, whatever you like. Like a lot of them have kind of specific roles, so you can definitely ask them to be part of those specific roles. So basically, step one, that in the midst of copulation, notice if there are any entities around. Now, there may be and there may not be, but if you do notice that there are entities around, then becoming aware. So acknowledge that there are entities, and then expand your energy. Become really big and really white, like my daughter was saying. Become really big and really white, and bring that joy energy. Remember, bringing smiles in can shift your energy a lot too. People tend to get pretty serious with sex, and they smile, and they get these like heavy, hardcore faces. So remember to smile, bring in that happy energy. And you might start to notice some of the energies, some of the entities actually start to clear on their own. And they just start to like vaporize. All they were looking for was a contribution of joy energy, and they could move on. Some of them will stick around. And with those ones, you can, yes, while you're copulating, you can actually be a, what's the word for it? Like doing two jobs at once, So you can have conversations with them and say, okay, cool. So whoever is here and would like to contribute to my body, having grace and joy and happiness and health, bring it on. If you'd like to bring me more clients. Now, if for those of you who have never taken my sexual magicism class, we go through a lot of interesting things like this in the class. And one of the tools is to actually bring energy through the bodies and utilize them to actually generate and create your life and your business. So request them. You can request those entities to actually contribute to your creations in your life and your body. And once they have like, you might notice like they're like agree to their jobs, and you can just ask like, is there anything else you would like to? So you can kind of get a clarity. And this is not like a long-winded thing. These awarenesses are super fast, and the questions will come up super fast as well. And then you can, send them off on their merry way, and you can even contribute orgasmic energy to them if you like. So if your body is starting to have the orgasmic energy, and I'm not talking about climax, I'm talking orgasmic energy rising. As the energy is rising, start to flow that energy out to the entities that are contributing to your body. And the entities, like we talked about, are many things like businesses and everything else. But in this case, we might be talking about beings that are particularly going to be like assistants, like your energy army for you, doing their job for you. So you've hired them to do a specific job, do it. They can receive whatever energy they require. And, if they don't orgasmic energy, the chances are they wouldn't have shown up during sex with you anyway. So definitely a little bit of that. Have some fun with that. Send them on their merry way. And know that you can actually have incredibly conscious sex, and there's lots of beings in the room, and it can become like an energetic orgy if that's something that is fun for you. So if you're like looking to spice things up, it's an strange and interesting way to spice things up. I do encourage people to actually go and have a threesome, like physically, just curious to add energies in. You can add energies of entities, but you can also call on the energy of people you already know and invite that energy in too, which can have a sensation similar to an entity, not necessarily like a disembodied being, but it's like, who's here? Who's in the room? Oh, it's my friends, and I'm having an orgy with my friends in the room. So yes, that's something that you can actually do. So invite the energies in first. It kind of rents your body up to receiving from more than one person. Invite multiple energies in. And you'll start to see how your body begins to receive more and more and more, and how much fun that can be too for you, because it's such a pretty unusual thing to choose, and you might already be doing it, but you might not even be aware of it. So this is really to gain awareness. So I have so much more to talk about. This is such a crazy, interesting topic, but, starting becoming more aware of the entities is certainly helpful. I got some more tips and tools for you, actually, and we're going to talk about them. I just want to remind you that you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network. I'm hostess with the mostess, Milica Jelenic, and we will return right after this commercial break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Welcome back to The Pleasure Zone, sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we're talking about sex with ghosts and entities. This isn't actually a new topic, by the way. This is something that's been going on historically for a really long time. There's actually reports since at least 2400 BC when demons Ardat Lili and Lili were described on the Sumerian king list. The tablet that gave the world the Epic of Gilgamesh. On the tablet, the demons are described as visiting men and women nightly to either become pregnant or to impregnate humans with hybrid spawn. So, and there's actually many cultures, when you look at them going back, there's so many cultures that discuss, especially women being visited by like the devil and stuff, different demons. And it's actually incredibly more common than you think. It's been written in different folklore throughout time, and there's actually art that has been painted by, famous art in the world. Probably if you walk through the Louvre, you'd probably find many paintings of demons on top of maidens, or you might find succubuses on top of men as well. So there's these different energies that have actually throughout history people have been aware of, and then sometimes they're aware of it, but they also have a fear of it. So then it comes out as there's a devil, having sex with you. Now, I don't know about you. I've had some pretty weird experiences in my life, and I did have a lover once a number of years ago who tended to have entities jump into his body. So I had experience of having sex with a body that had different beings in it, which was fascinating in itself. That's a whole other variation of sex with entities is having sex with a person who has multiple entities. And actually, the person's face would morph into another face. And so I was looking at it totally, and I was like just fascinated by it. I was like, wow. I thought my psychic abilities were ramping up. I'd been asking my psychic abilities to ramp up. And yes, I get that for this particular person, one of the reasons why the entities were coming into their body was to have sex. They also had an addiction to other things, so the entities were also coming in for the addiction, and that I knew that my body was contributing healing to that body. So that was, at the time, I didn't quite have words for it, but I could watch. As I was copulating with this person, I could actually watch their face shift and morph, and they would become men and women and different creatures that I had no name for. And it was kind of fascinating, and so I kept going for it because I was like, this is fascinating. What is this? And the personality would shift and change at the same time too. So I have to say it was by far fascinating. It wasn't the kindest copulation of my life, but it was also a fabulous learning experience because until then I'd never actually been with somebody who had so many entities that they allowed to take over their body and that they would morph and change into the entities quite readily. So, as that relationship went on, I saw that more and more in them in a daily life, and I could actually see face morph and change. So the entities for them were quite intrusive, and they allowed them to be. That was, I definitely offered facilitation. They weren't interested, actually more keen. Sometimes those entities can become really demanding, and people can become loyal to their entities. And I'm actually going to be on a show on Wednesday night about these, and that was a weird one, that knowing that some people are actually more loyal to their entities than they are to themselves and their own body and their own health. So one thing you can actually start to see, so there's a question in the chat room. So when a lover has an uncomfortable face with being vulnerable when you look at each other, is it actually an entity? So that's a great question. So what do you know, ready to receive? Is it actually an entity? So when I was with this particular person, they didn't really like to look at me either. And then as I did, they would start to clear it, which was fascinating to me, that when you do actually look them in the eye and become present with entities, whether you're having a conscious or unconscious discussion with them, they will start to either to the forefront or clear. Being space, again, is an amazing gift to actually clear them. There are, a number of people, if you're with people and you're like, their personality changes constantly, if you're with a lover and you're like, who are they? Like, why do they keep changing all the ways they're being constantly? Like, one minute they're nice, the next minute they're like a jackass. Are they bipolar? What's going on? Ask too, are there entities involved here? There just might be, and you actually the contribution to clearing that. So I dare you to look them deep in the eyes, look in their face, and actually just notice, because sometimes as you do look at somebody, when you look them in the face, the side of their face can start to it'll start to shift, and they will start to show sometimes their true self. On another occasion as well, which was fascinating, and I could actually see the person's face, but then also see the face that of their true being, which was fascinating. But it was like sometimes you have to wear a face in this reality so that you don't freak people out. And when I was first with my lover husband too, he said he didn't quite word it that way, but he would say, "Oh, there's your face." And I noticed that there was this energy, like as soon as I would allow myself to become vulnerable, all my barriers would go down and my face would shift. And like, yeah, your face like completely changes. And he would call it my on top face. It wasn't actually that. It was my like, I was like willing to be completely vulnerable, looking him in the eyes, and then everything else just like why. So everything that I put out to this reality, for everybody to see me as, and I'm sure you guys notice that over time your face changes, but that you see in photos doesn't actually change, has hardly changed in over 25 years. My physical face doesn't really change much, which is fascinating, but people who know me will often even say, like my mom will say, and she'll see she's like, I don't even see that. That's not you. Because the people who really truly see me, they don't actually recognize photos most of the time. So that's pretty fascinating. I do know somebody who is able to photograph the real me, but I don't usually put those photos out. I go with the photos that people recognize me as. So it's though to me to have been the person who has a face that morphed, to be in a situation or a few situations where I've actually watched very different situations where you have a face that you're putting on for the public as sort of a protective thing. I need to look human in this reality, so here's my face. And there's this other situation where there's multiple entities and the person is morphing. So yeah, I think it would be really my real face as well and my face that everybody sees side by side. That was a comment in the chat room. It would be really cool actually, because what I perceive about how I look and what photographs show me are very different. So yeah, so just interesting concepts, right? Like a lot of people, when they're considering sex with entities, they're just or ghosts. They're just thinking ghosts without bodies, but Holy Lifting, people will invite ghosts into their bodies. They will check out. They will not be present. So, when you're not present, the ghosts just have their heyday. They're like, hey, I want to have fun. I want that energy. I'm going to jump in for a second. You're on vacation. It's not that you jump out fully. It's that you're kind of half in, half out, but there's this room for other things to show up. When you're fully present in your body, the chance other entities showing up in your body are really slim. They might show up around you. You might become really aware of the ones that are outside and around you, but the chances of them jumping in your body are slim. So be present. If something that you don't want to show up in your life, be present. And be present with your partner, because when it challenges them to actually not have the entities show up in their body either. So kind of a fun thing to be aware of. And yeah, there's so many levels to this crazy ghost sex entities, fun playtime. There's, the level that Gust as a description that also people with spectrophilia also are fascinated by images and mirrors and energies of ghosts, and there's so many there. So I think I'll probably actually delve into that more after the break. But for those of you who are listening, if you really love this topic, and if you'd really like to know more about energy, sex, and if you'd like to actually experience some pretty cool tools, message me, write to me you can write to me on Facebook, you can write to me through my website, milicajelenic.com. Write to me and request the 21 Days of Sexual Magicism class that I actually put out a fabulous package. So if it's something that you're interested in, the package was $187, and I'll still hold to that if you mention that you heard it on this show. So yeah, just to consider, because there's so many tools to offer, and I can't wrap them all up in 1 hour, but I can in 21 days of it. So I want to remind you guys that you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Milica Jelenic, and we are going to head off to our next commercial break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow your yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What would you say if I told you that you could change your life in only 1 hour and all while lying down relaxing? Thousands of people all over the world have. What am I talking about? It's called Access Consciousness, the bars. The bars is an energetic body process that contains 32 different points on your head that when run assist you in releasing decisions about any area of your life that you have made solid and as a result cannot change. The bars is the first class in Access Consciousness, a dynamic set of tools and information designed to transform any area of your life. When you have a bars session, the worst that can happen is you feel like you had a fantastic massage. The best thing that can happen is your whole life could change. Go to accessconsciousness.com today to find a facilitator to schedule a private session or to find a bars class in your area. Are you willing to give yourself an hour to change your life?
This is The Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. Pleasure Seekers, we're talking about ghosts and sex with ghosts and sex with other entities tonight. One of the things that comes up in research is that for some people who are spectrophiliacs, they actually feel like an experience that they're dying. So even though ghost sex has predominantly truth in mythology, modern-day researchers attribute the phenomenon to a very, very common condition called sleep paralysis. And sleep paralysis is something where they're saying that you basically freeze right before you're woken up before REM starts. So that's rapid eye movement. That's the sleep phase. And for some reason or other, mostly these reports are by women, probably because men don't admit to it, but there was actually studies done, and a gentleman named David Hufford wrote something called The Terror That Comes in the Night. It's one of the first researchers that began studying spectrophilia. So for some people, it's actually terrifying, and you actually, basically your body freezes. You feel like your heart is stopping, and your body just goes into a bit of a terror. So would that occur if you're actually say, aware? Would that occur? Or would that mostly only occur if you are unaware? And I'm thinking that a lot of times that would mostly only occur unaware. So if you become aware of entities and you become aware of when they're there and when they're there, and literally you can just ask, is that an entity? Right? It's that simple. You'll get information on that, yes or no. You can go ask further questions as well, but definitely ask some questions on that. And that will give you greater information and greater understanding so that you're not frozen in the middle of the night if an entity comes and approaches you. Now, what I'm aware of from my life is, like I was mentioning, noticing that one of my partners had entities in his body and would shift faces during sex. I also noticed that there are entities present when I, generally if there are entities present, I just don't talk about it all the time. And why do I know? Well, for those of you who don't know this, I've actually for most of my life I've been outed as a psychic for most of my life. So since I was 22, working that way professionally with people. So it's not like and also I've always said as a psychic, I've always said from day one, yeah, I can do this. It's a muscle that I've practiced with and strengthened. And if I've been, muscle training this muscle since birth, um, it's going to be a pretty strong muscle. But if you have the same muscle and you haven't trained it, or if that muscle came up and it was trained and then somebody said, oh, forget it, that's a waste and that's useless, and you strong that muscle, then your muscle might be a little weaker. But every single person that I've ever met has a capacity to perceive other people's thoughts and emotions. I have yet to meet a person that doesn't. And in that sense, we're all psychic. It's just a matter of actually practicing it and strengthening that muscle. So if that's something that you desire and you'd actually like to be aware of it, or you'd even like to test out sex with ghosts on your own. Some people have actually decided to just give up, partnerships. They're just, oh, having a boyfriend is too difficult. Who wants to be married? Who wants to have a boyfriend? Oh, forget about that. And they're just like, saying forget about it. What they're interested in is sex with ghosts. There's all kinds of philias in the world talked about on this show. We've talked about things like objectophilia, where people are enamored and get turned on by objects. One of the people who are into objectophilia actually married the Eiffel Tower. And I think she was requested to divorce it because she was there to have sex with the Eiffel Tower, and it was kind of like publicly getting strange. So if you really are just like kind of done with people, or you don't find people attractive but you find entities attractive and you'd like, how do you get into that more? I'd encourage you to take as many classes as you can on becoming aware of entities. And I'll give you a few tips right now, a few tips and tools if you'd actually like to enjoy some playtime with somebody. For example, maybe you had a lover that passed on, or maybe, when I was like a teenager, I had a thing for Jim Morrison, and I swear to God, I would like call on his entity all the time. I found his energy very attractive, even though he was very, dark and demented. And so in that sense, it's like, was I having sex with Jim Morrison, or was I attracted to the similar energy of that? And I was probably pulling on similar energies, which is a lot likely of why I attracted the people in my life that I did up until my husband. Although there were, pretty much. But there we had this fascination, right, with this kind of dark, mysterious kind of people, characters, and that was something that when I would masturbate, even as like a teen, and even to this day, it's something where I'm aware that there are entities contributing to my body. So I'm aware that there are other energies in the room, I'm not alone, and at first it would freak the shit out of me, and even though I would be in the house all completely by myself, I would still throw blankets on because I didn't want the entities to see me naked. I was like, because I didn't really know that I had the deal that I could say, you get out of my room. So you, number one, you're in charge. You're in charge of all of it. You're in charge of inviting them in, and you're also in charge of count. So, and if they get really belligerent and jerk-like, you can just be more and more space, more and more light, or you can tell them to F off. It's your choice. You'll know what tool will work for you in that moment, and just use it. So telling something to F off is actually a tool, by the way. So for those of you who might actually want to invite them in, become familiar with entities. What you can do is you can actually ask entities to actually come closer to you. And you can actually invite, say for example, it's a lover that's passed on and that you maybe miss. So I have many clients who are widowed, and some of them are missing their partners deeply, and some of them aren't ready to hear this, but if they're listening, here you go. And one of the things I suggest is that you just get present with your body, and then you can ask the entity, you can kind of pull it up, be like, say the person's name might be Joseph or John or Jack or something. You just call up the name. Just be like, Joseph. Okay. Can you come closer? Hi. Hi. Can you come closer? 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 And then just ask that being to come closer to you, and that you're actually in charge of this in the space. And actually ask them to you can ask them to touch you somewhere, like on your shoulder, on your face. And you might see the temperature changes, like as I was inviting Joseph, the entity, in. I don't actually have a lover or an ex named Joseph in this lifetime, so whoever this is, everything in my body got cold. So I'm like, hi, how are you? Thank you for being an example today for this experiment on the radio. And then so you can ask them to get closer, and then if that's something that you desire, if you'd actually like to have them touch you, you can actually request that. You can ask them to contribute to your body. You can actually ask them to bring their body closer to yours. You can ask for a kiss if you like. You can ask. Now, the beautiful thing is you can actually do this with people who are alive too. So same thing, they are also an entity, and if they are in agreement with you and they're, permission, hi. So I have a friend, I'm going to call him my friend David energetically. He was on the show a few weeks ago. He's an interesting character, and I can call on his energy just to be like, hi, David, come into my space and come for a hug. And I get like a yes. So I'm like, cool. And then I'll just like be space and presence. And then I'll just receive the energy from that. So David as a person with a body has a little different sensation for me. It's not that different, but it's a little different sensation than, say, whoever this Joseph disembodied person is. So those are some like little quickie tips and tools that you can use. So just ask them to get closer, ask to get a sensation on your body, ask for confirmation that that's who they are, and then you can ask if you can contribute to them, their body in any way. You can absolutely do that and send that off. And you can also bring their energy while you're masturbating. So like I mentioned when I started talking about this, to try and break it down to something more simple, but you can, while you're masturbating, you can invite those energies in. I have myself an energetic lover for sure, or two. I have a few people who tell me about it quite often, which is very cool. And then I have so many energies actually that it's fascinating. I have people I've actually never met in person who energetically contribute to my body, and then I have people who I have met in person energetically contribute to my body. And so I'm super grateful for all of them. It's amazing that I've created a body that people would like to contribute to, and that I have a body that would like to contribute to other bodies. So while I'm masturbating, I will actually ask those energies, and I'll invite them in to contribute to my body. So sometimes it just feels nice to have like touch. Ask them to like touch my breasts, touch my legs, stroke my body. I'll ask for it so that I'm actually having like an interaction. Again, kind of like an energetic orgy. And, energetic orgies are really safe, and there's no STD involved. And there's not a lot of hurt feelings unless people get wrapped up in the, oh my God, you're cheating on me with the ghost energy. But if they're not going to get wrapped up in that, or an entity of somebody that you've never met, if they don't get wrapped up in it, then you're good to go, and you can have your energetic or totally thoroughly enjoy yourself. So, wow, we're wrapping, not yet, but we're on our third break. So I want to remind you that you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your hostess, Milica Jelenic, and we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What if you really do change molecules by your interaction with them? What if the change you've been looking for is right before your eyes? What if the uncomfortableness that comes with difference could be fun? What if the closed-minded people of the world no longer determined our world? What if gratitude trumps judgment every time? What if your kindness healed the world? What if the earth is asking for your help? And what if you had the resources to give it? This is your invitation to step into something that Einstein, Marie Curie, Picasso, Da Vinci, Shakespeare, Aristotle all knew to be true. Hi, my name is Dane here. 13 years ago I started to truly ask questions. Actually, I started to be the question, and everything changed for me. What if there are no dumb questions? Or any question too large? What if you being you are the gift and the change this world requires? Is now the time? For more questions to create a change in your world, sign up for a free video series at beingyouclass.com. My gift to you, beingyouclass.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. You must be a pleasure seeker if you're here tonight, especially with the wild and wacky topic of sex with ghosts and other entities. So, some people can take the relationships with ghosts even a step further. There's actually a woman who claims she engaged to a ghost. There's probably on some levels people are just desiring a sense of closeness and connection and loyalty. So if that's what they're looking for, they might actually choose to be engaged to a ghost. And who are we to say that you have to have a body to be married? I don't know. I don't know if there's anything, mind, body, and spirit. Maybe there is something in traditional vows that say that, but you can always go with different vows. You can also marry a ghost too. It's just fascinating. So I think there's anybody complaining that they're alone and they can't find somebody, really? There are 7.9 billion on the planet, and there are probably 45 gajillion, that's right, that's a number, gajillion entities on the planet. So my question, okay, there's a question in the chat room. So are we cheating on a partner who's passed? Well, are you? Well, according to the way that we say our vows, till death do us part, we would be cheating on everybody and anybody because there is no death. Your energy lives on. So in marriage vows, we had no till death do us part. So we actually didn't say I love you in our vows either. We talked about gratitude, and we did not talk about forever. Neither of us agree on forever. We don't look at wanting to be with each other for all lifetimes that we're aware of, but if we happen to find each other in the next, we'd still like to be together, cool. And in this lifetime is good enough for now, so we're going to stick with this lifetime. So if you feel like you're actually cheating on a partner from the past, just check into that. If you are not choosing to have partners, or if you're finding that you just can't move, you might actually have some loyalties to past partners. And you also might have had a lot of trauma to do with their passing. So there might be a few things on that would have you not choose forward. So just something to look at and to investigate for yourself. Now, I did mention the sex and mirrors as part of this whole spectrophilia category. So, and who even knew there was a word for it. So sex and mirrors has to do with images. And how many people, you can go to hotel rooms. I know when I was 19 years old, I got a hotel room with a boyfriend in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. And that hotel room had a crazy-ass bed, and it had mirrors on the ceiling and walls. Actually, half of the room was mirrors. And, that's kind of a testament to people's love of images and mirrors. If you get turned on by images and mirrors, apparently you are classified the same way people are who get turned on by ghosts. Now, turned on by pretty much life and pretty much anything, I think. Well, maybe not I don't get turned on by murder or people who are sexually abusers, or I'm not really into that. But I get turned on by nature, by animals even. Like, I don't know, I get turned on really easy. I'm pretty easy, let's face it. So something to consider if you haven't had sex with ghosts and you'd like to try. Remember that last little segment that I talked about, some tips and tools on how to actually get in contact with your fun, sexy ghost love, whether they're from the past or whether they're just ones you haven't met yet. Online dating has never been easier because you don't even have to be online to be dating yours. And you know what? They probably will listen to you because guess what? When you have a body, you're in charge. So if you're into domination, you might actually be in charge with the ghosts. It's hard to say, but it's possible. Remember, this is a new thing, right? So remember Sumerians, like 2400 BC, were talking about sex with ghosts and being using that for procreation. This is not news, and people for ages have been using images in paintings with demons having sex with maidens, etc., and succubuses having sex with men. Fascinating topic, right? This is like crazy stuff. And what did we say at the very beginning? It's all energy. And we're energy. So is it really that weird? Or is it really pretty freaking normal that we would just get turned on by everything and anything? It's the pleasure zone, right? So on this show, we pretty much talk about everything could turn you on. I haven't had a show, I've even talked to things on shows where they wouldn't normally turn on, but I can always find a way to flip it so that there's some segment of the society that might get turned on because you never know. So I'm so grateful for you guys listening tonight to this wild and wacky Halloween episode of The Pleasure Zone, where we talked about sex with ghosts and other entities. And if you have questions, feel free to contact on www.milicajelenic.com. That's MILICAJENIC.com. I have lots of cool programs you can join in on, and I'd love to see you on them next week too, and I'm going to have another super exciting topic, but that's going to be a surprise. So you'll have to tune in to that show to find out about that. So until next week, stay tuned in and turned on.
Thank you for choosing to listen to The Pleasure Zone. Milica Jelenic will return next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.